sometimes I may feel like I'm in the back burner,
Right.
but it's not really that. It's we're evolving as humans, which is what you're supposed to do.
Right.
So yeah, you're marrying the unknown, and you know, again, like, how do men deal with that? How do women deal with that? So
Right.
it's never a thing where it's just a one script, one blueprint. You're
Right.
continuously trying to figure things out, communication, and I want to have real conversations about how people deal with these things.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Another entry to the Inside the Mind podcast. I have a very special guest. I'm doing a lot of plot twist episodes this week, and I wanted to start interviewing some of those that are on that chase, that hunt for the glory of their pro card, our fellow NPC competitors. She's been competing for 7 years and has won an overall. She's been to 5 national shows. She's very close. I can feel it. I've told her this already. She's real close. I'm trying to tell y'all. None other than Aubri Goudy. How are you doing today, ma'am?
I'm good. How are you?
Amazing. Thank you for asking. I made sure to have my coffee this morning because since I started following and I'm realizing my energy is terrible.
I drink about 5 cups a day, so pick it up. That, throwing in fat burners, some pre-workout.
And you are a ball of energy for sure. So I definitely appreciate it. So again, here on Inside the Mind, we don't want to talk about, you know, reps, sets, macros, what you eat, what you don't eat, all that stuff that is relevant. But this is more about, you know, the intellect and how we think and how we feel as bodybuilders, because typically, you know, your fans, my fans pretty much who follow us, they tend to think that we're robotic and we're not human and we don't feel things, and they follow the social media. If they follow yours, which you have a lot of followers, they would think you're probably a ball of energy all day. But I mean, it's hard to keep up with that all day. So that's what I want to, you know, give that type of information out to the world, and hopefully they take heed to it and get a better understanding as far as who we are as humans.
Okay.
All right. So first and foremost, mentally anyway, how are you doing these days?
Honestly, if I'm being completely transparent, not great.
Mm.
Came off my first wellness division show, which was the prep was fantastic, but I think people get misunderstood that we still work. So I have a full-time job, and that job takes a lot of mental for me. And so the ball of energy that is portrayed on my social media is there for about a time, and then you come home and you have to deal with your emotions. And then when you have that type of stress in your life, on top of trying to stay fit and worry about your body, and then people want you to do another show, and what are you going to do next? I need to pay my bills. And
Yeah,
then you have to
I
worry
would
about
hope so.
how your emotions affect everybody else. And I manage. So I actually have to worry about how my emotions literally manage other people, and also deal with their emotions. And I'm an empath. So then I take in all of the energy.
Yeah, tell me a little bit, because you know, talking with Antoine, he did mention you would be a good fit because you having your hands in so many different things. If you can tell me a little bit about what it is that you do and how impactful that is to the community you're in.
So I do property management. I do manage a community of condos. So
Mhm.
I manage residents along with a operations team. So we have an on-site team. So I do all the operations. I do financing. I do project management. I work with the board. I have to deal with residents, but also my staff. And so I have like housekeeping, maintenance. We have concierge, we have loss prevention. We deal with their deliveries. We deal with their bills. We deal with their community projects, which have been massive this year. So a lot of that. And then you also have the people you work with, and making sure you understand where they're at and their personal emotions and what they're personally going through in life. And um, to not give away too much information, we have
Mhm.
like a very, very large staff, and I run it from the top down. So
I think Antoine undersold it, but okay. So
he did. We don't, I mean, I don't talk too much about what I do. Like, I won't give out names or company names
Right,
because
right.
I am large on social media, but he is my top person. So I'm the manager and he's my assistant manager. And we run this massive team together, actually.
That's amazing. So, with all that, you still have everything you have to do as far as with bodybuilding. So you have and I'm not gonna call it a distraction because you're doing something that's amazing for the community, so that's a beautiful thing. But when it comes to prep doesn't understand that. So, how do you manage that?
I've actually been doing that since I've started prepping. And I think a huge thing I learned is prep and NPC and bodybuilding does not pay my bills. So when I first started, people always have those excuses like peak week or exhaustion. Those things did affect me for a while. Like I'd be the person to take off my entire peak week. But as I started to climb the corporate ladder and realized that I wanted more skill for myself outside of just looking good, because I mean, I don't know if men deal with this as much as women do, but I definitely felt like I became more of like a physical icon than like an actual person. And I wanted to be attractive mentally more than I was physically, or at least equal to it. But I enjoy the physical part, right? Like I enjoy looking good. That's for me, not for other people. But my job comes first. And keeping that the forefront of everything allowed me to continue to enjoy prep. And people like to make prep work. And so then they end up hating the gym after working out and after doing a show. So prep actually was not my distraction. It became my escape. And eating really is the hardest part, right? Like you preparation for meals, taking it to the office, having it ready in the morning. I'm the type of person to do it 3 to 4 days in advance, and then I keep my meals at the office for the meals that I eat there. So you never have an excuse. You don't have to leave and go get meals, go cook meals. I think people just find excuses to not have it available to you. That's really the hardest part, especially about what I do, because I'm being pulled in 1,000 different directions all day long. So
Right.
actually getting the food in, especially switching to wellness where I have to eat more, was a little bit more difficult, but not terrible. And like if it doesn't work, if I miss a meal, I miss a meal. I'd be up till midnight eating.
Hey, that's a beautiful thing. Well, not in off season. There's been a couple times I got so hungry, I just snuck down in the kitchen. I was like, "Whatever, I'm about to eat. I'm hungry."
I'm
But
eating more than I would want, honestly, now in off season trying to grow. Going from bikini to wellness was more of a mind effery than anything, honestly.
what made you make that change?
I actually genetically am a wellness girl. When I
Mm.
started competing, wellness was not an option, and my thighs were huge. But I didn't want to be a figure. Like I always wanted to keep my femininity about me.
Mhm.
And so I allowed myself to try and conform to a bikini girl body because I enjoyed the mental discipline of competing.
Okay, that's good, that's good. You mentioned something about how you like to look good for you. It's for you, not anyone else.
Mhm.
Is there any outside influence or pressure that comes with that type of, ideology or mindset? And the reason I say that is because social media is such a it can be good, it can be bad. It could be great, it could be toxic. It's one or the other for, for most people. But talking to, other competitors, they feel like they have to only post what they feel looks good for others because how toxic it can be. So, what is your mindset on that?
So I definitely started there. Like when I was 20 and I started competing, it was having to look at all the time, and then you went from like this shredded body to off season and you would gain God knows how many pounds. Um, once my following started to grow, my mentor relied on that a lot for validation.
Mm.
I will say my mental mentality with competing has changed over the last year to be as healthy as it currently is because my identity isn't in competing. And I have spent a lot of time, like I started therapy, and it wasn't for competing. Like I was struggling with work life balance a lot, but I started going to therapy and I started to read a lot of like emotional intelligence books to like be aware of like my own triggers and like maybe why I wanted to compete. I do have faith, right? Like I'm a Christian. And so I
Mhm.
dove into that a lot this year, and you realize that you start to put your identity in things. So like your identity is in your job and what you do or in competing. And I got to the point where I finally hit that one, there's always going to be a better looking person than you. Always. Like I could be Miss Olympia and there will still be another more beautiful woman than me somewhere in the world, there, and there will be somebody more beautiful than her, and people are still being born. It's never going to end. There's a massive cycle. But also, nobody's ever going to love you if you don't love yourself.
Oh my gosh. Say it louder for the people in the back, please. That
And
is
like, oh, I hit it last year and I realized I was in a relationship. It was not a bad relationship by any means.
mhm.
But I realized that the most freeing feeling I ever had was being enough for me.
Mm.
And like, as long as I'm happy with who I am, I can be happy with anybody.
So, oh, this is so dope. I'm glad you brought that up. So with NPC and pros, like that is a very profound perspective to come to. But then you have this other side where, people are chasing their pro cars, they're chasing Olympia, whatever the case is, and they get caught up in like the judging.
Hmm.
And the judging tends to, maybe they have that mindset, but it tends to take them out of that. Like, what could you say to people that rely on placings for validation, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Actually, when I dove back into my faith this year, to be completely transparent with you and whoever watching, I decided to become abstinent, celibate, and dive full straight into like my faith. And somebody asked me about how competing affects like how I think people view me as a Christian and if it's like godly or holy. And they said it's because we place our value in the opinions of other people instead of God. And I looked at my friend because she's a pro and I was like, do you though? Like when you get off stage, what is the feeling if you lose? And I used to, right? Like I was like, oh my God, like I'm fighting so hard. What am I fighting for? And I would cry. And after my last bikini show, I almost quit. And it was more like I knew I was unhappy with my body. And I was like, like I'm trying to fit this figure for somebody else's idea of perfect. Now, if you research the judges' videos and what they want and what they're looking for and actually look at what they've chosen, some could say it never lines up. Some can say sometimes it lines up. We forget also that they have to judge to what comes on stage, right? So they can say they don't want muscular and all the girls can come up muscular. They have to choose. They can't just say, you know what, y'all didn't hit it. Like, get off my stage. Nobody wins. You're not listening to me.
That's
But
true.
also, you have the political side. That is definitely there. Like, I don't know how many people pull me aside and they're like, this girl's da 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 da. I mean, as much as we want to believe that that's not there. It's there. So
Oh man.
if you go on, and I realized it last year with bikini, I told my coach if we didn't switch, I would have to quit. I told him I was tired of fighting myself and my body, but I could compete for the rest of my life as long as I was loving the body that I was taking on stage. And
Mm.
so when I went on stage this year, first time, like in wellness, like I posed the best I've ever posed. I've been more mentally aware than I've ever been mentally aware. Like I didn't black out on stage. I loved the entire experience and I normally hate it. And it was because I was happy with me. This is the first show I got off stage. I didn't go binge eat. I didn't even finish my burger. I went out after the show, which I've never done in 7 years. I stay hidden in my hotel. I went out and I had a drink. I celebrated. I off season perfectly because I loved the body I had, even though I didn't win first. Like the whole, like, it was all about me and what I achieved for myself. The sport is competing with you. You are not competing with anybody else.
Wow. That is amazing to hear. It seems like you're coming or not coming, you have come into this space of clarity about not just, the sport, but just in, who you are and what you're trying to achieve and what's your faith and your purpose. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, of course.
All right.
Because, like, those judges, they look at 50,000 different women. Like I said, they could be more beautiful than me. And the next girl on 50,000, they're not going to remember you. You're a number. Like, unless you're going to help their money and their building, like, in all reality, like, they do not know you personally. So don't make that your worth. Like, that guy telling you that your butt wasn't big enough.
But it's crazy because that's like so what was my feedback from my pro debut last year? I could have came in drier because I was like flat and I could have came in drier and my upper chest was flat. You need more rounder chest. So initially, because I was in my feelings about it, it was on my daughter's birthday. You talk about binge eating. I binge ate that night for like almost 2 weeks worth. It was terrible. But I got caught up in that and it was just like it took me a while to come out of it, but I had to actually like, dude, it's one show. You have many more to go. And that was the first time I popped up on stage flat. So it was one of those things where it was like, all right, that can't happen again, but realistically it can if your body decides to react that way. Is so it was just one of those things where I'm glad I took this year off because now like going into next year, it's like, dude, I'm happy and blessed enough to even attempt to grace the stage. And it's all about improving in all aspects, not just bodybuilding. And that show actually taught me that like yeah, I'm a pro and that's fine, but I'm not owed anything and they don't know me. They're going to give me my feedback. And like you said, ironically, you're just a number. You have a badge on that has a number. You are just a number. But I mean, again, like it's so hard to
It's
come.
like you're giving someone so much power over your mental. Like, you're like, here's like my entire life. Like, I'm gonna go home and binge eat and kill myself and hate, or not kill myself, hate myself. That was bad wording.
Hmm.
Because this one person said something that's not personal. Like, they don't know you. Like, they don't dislike you as a person. Like,
Yeah. Well, hopefully, when people hear this, they understand how to come into that space based off what you're saying. I feel like it as an amateur, it's dope to come into that space because again, like I had that same mentality going into, the national shows. It was just a constant chase. Whatever, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna get it. I was chasing it so hard, I wasn't even listening to the feedback half the time. It's like, whatever, I just need to go back to work. Whatever. So that was like partially a good thing. But I was just so stuck. Like, I want to turn pro. I want to turn pro. Like, so like people when they hear this, it's just like, wow, like there's a different way to approach this rather than on this constant naive type of chase in a sense. Like you can't lose yourself in the sport. So yeah, that was dope. But you are, for lack of a better words, chasing your pro card. How has that journey been for you?
I definitely went through all the same woes that everybody does. During bikini was probably obviously the hardest because I stayed at top five for so long. Like, I just kept re-qualifying through top five, and like, my coach worked with like Jennifer Dory right after she became Olympia. Like, I saw met her backstage and she's like, you look perfect. And to like go up on stage after Miss Olympia tells you look perfect and like you don't get it. There was talk of I didn't have enough hype. Again, political, right? Like, I don't my life is not. I used to be NPC. I did the whole nine. Like I did everything NPC. I would go to every single thing that was here in DFW. I would go to all the seminars. I would go put my face in front of the judges. I would go to every show I possibly could go to. I would starve myself. I was having mental battles. I did all the I didn't look good enough type of thing. And then it just started to like kind of drift off. And it was like, okay, like this is now a lifestyle. Like this is something I've learned from, I've been educated from. Work started to become huge. Like I started to climb my ladder and become a person in work and start to enjoy my life. And then there was this one saying that finally hit me about a year and a half ago. And it was like, when you're 16, you want this body of like a 20-year-old. And then when you hit your 20s, you want your 16-year-old body. And then when you hit your 30s, you want your 20-year-old body. And you're never loving your body. And during my bikini preps, especially my bikini preps, because I had to shred my legs so little, I always wore sweatshirts. I always wore sweatpants. I never let myself be beautiful. And I was
Wow.
miserable through prep when I looked the best I ever looked. And I remember going back through, like, I would binge eat and I had gained an eating disorder, definitely gained bulimia through all that. Um, and I would look back and be like, God, I looked so good. But I literally could remember myself in that moment. And in that moment, I wasn't small enough. Like in the moment where I was 112 pounds, I'm like, I'm not small enough. Like I need to go sit in the sauna for another 45 minutes.
Wow.
And so I hated myself for that. I'm like, why didn't I let myself enjoy my body? Like, why didn't I wear the cute little black dress? And why didn't I wear the cute workout outfits? I'm over here in hoodies. I would wear the sweat pants, like the trash bag pants. Like it was massively insane.
No, you was going in for that.
Yeah. And
Man.
then I finally, like, I told myself every year, like, I'm gonna get my pro card this year. And I would not enjoy my years. Like, I wouldn't enjoy holidays because I was always prepping for the holidays. I was struggling, like, not fully learning the job I was in at the time.
Mm,
And then this year, we just took it slow. Like, I wanted to prep. Like I wanted to get into a prep. We took a long off season. I enjoyed eating healthy. Like it's physically become my lifestyle. Like I don't think I could eat off diet if I wanted to because I just enjoy it. Like I know
right.
I'm educated enough to know what my macros are, my foods are, looking at labels, and I enjoy my routine. And getting into prep was so easy for me. And then I did my show, and my coach was like, "Do you want to push for nationals at the end of the year?" And I was like, "No." Like, no, I really don't. And it's not that I don't want my pro card, but in my mind, going on stage this time and loving my body, I would straight up told him, I was like, "We know why I lost. Like I wasn't big enough." And that's okay because I spent 7 years dropping my leg size. And I put on I think 17 pounds of muscle in my off season. Finally,
Wow.
my legs, yeah, my stage weight went from like 112 to 130. And
So
whew,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
you're good. Last, like right where I'm at now, I told him, I said I'd rather take the time to let my body grow healthy than push it and harm myself and my mental trying to compete against something I know I'm not ready for.
Ready mentally or physically or both?
Physically. And I
Okay.
think that since I know I'm not ready, right? Why would I push myself to do that during the holidays and like put myself in a position to hate myself knowing I'm not ready to go? I'm the girl that beat me at my regional show is going to be a nationals. Like, it's just, she's
Yeah.
bigger. I need time.
Oh my gosh, because yeah, I would have had the itch. Me back then anyway. I would have been like, yeah, I need to go do that. But you seem so much more at peace with that decision. And I think a lot of that is a test to you, like you said, loving yourself, loving your body, and having for the first time enjoying the experience of getting on stage, off the stage, stuff like that. So I think that was a great decision that was made for sure. So
Thank you.
you mentioned to me you have a goal as far as, with bodybuilding, and that's pretty much, creating a market, for mental health, within the industry. Speak to me a little bit about why mental health is important to you. Why do you feel mental health is important within the bodybuilding industry, and why no one likes to talk about it?
People don't want to blame bodybuilding. Like, I'll go backwards on that for dang sure. People leave it out because they almost, it's like an excuse, right? It's like whenever you grow up with trauma or you go through something and it's kind of like, I am the way that I am because I no, you're immature because you don't want to face your trauma. And so that's what they do with NPC and bodybuilding. Like, they're like, oh, this is just the way it is. Like, I have to hide myself in my apartment during peak week. No, grow up, manage your emotions. I think somebody brought up like drugs to me and they were like, like this stuff affects your hormones. And I said, there's GMOs in food. Like, there are things in food that also affect your hormones. Like, there are
Right.
things we take, like vitamins and supplements, that aren't drug grade, black market grade drugs as a normal human being, superfoods, all these random powderized things that can still affect your hormones. So you have to learn to manage your emotions no matter if you're on something hardcore or not, because there can always be something affecting you and outside sources you can't control. So it's about being an adult. And if you choose to do this sport, you know what it entails. So you have to be aware of your emotions enough to still adult, like, still
Right.
pay your bills, still be in a relationship and not let it affect the way that you treat your person. And so
Hmm.
it's something you're choosing to do as a hobby, and you don't get to use it as an excuse to be an asshole. Excuse my French, but you just don't.
Uh, I rather use the French because I went through that my first year, like getting into the sport, like just learning it. Like I think I was telling Anton this too, like putting, my family, my wife, my daughter on the back burner, and then I got pulled to the side, like, hey, you might need to fix this. Like you're coming off like this, you're doing this, and for me being, a clinician, I it was almost like I turned that whole side of my brain off and forgot how to use all the tools that I got in school and all the tools that, that I've obtained doing therapy and stuff like that. So when I got pulled to the side and had a real conversation with my wife, it was like, oh, I had no clue. So now, like, all those tools is turned on at all times, because you're right. The house comes first, human comes first. Like bodybuilding is pretty much, it's secondary. The stage ain't going nowhere, but I also don't have to go on stage. It's voluntary.
Yeah, it's
In a
something you're
sense.
choosing to do. It's like NFL football players, all the same. Like, people do some hard things in life, and like, you're choosing to do this. And what's more admirable is being able to do it and still be human. Like,
Mm,
we're not invincible, but I don't know. It's just something like people ask me all the time, like when, like you're prepping, like, or do you date when you're in prep or have you? And I'm like, yes, like I've been a great girlfriend. Like, who I am doesn't change. Like, you may
right.
not be able to eat with me. If anything, like, the men I've dated have learned so much from me because I'm so sober minded. Like, it's just, I will take full pride in that. Like, I'm so available mentally during prep because it's just like, you're aware. You should be 10 times more aware, essentially. But
That's what's up. So within the sport and the industry, like what type of, I guess, market, or not necessarily market, what would you like to do on the mental health side as far as enhancing this type of dialogue? Because this is why I started this podcast. I felt this was not being talked about. With your following, you could go live and all they're going to ask is, hey, where did you get those clothes from? Hey, where did you get the background music for this? How much are you eating? And it got so annoying. And I was just like, dude, somebody just woke up 5 o'clock in the morning to do cardio, and you worried about what was on their plate. Like,
Uh, I definitely have veered my Instagram more towards that. I wanted and had a thought, more of like a niche from God, where I thought that I wanted to go into like the therapy side of things. I really
Okay.
did. I don't want to go back to school. I think it's a waste of time, if I'm being completely honest. So I
Mhm.
do plan on at some point when I do get more free time doing life coaching and starting a platform for that. And it would be YouTube and podcasting at some point is what I want to do if I'm speaking bluntly. To try and it's not like bodybuilding will always be a part of that, but just in general, mental health in society is really lacking. Being a single woman, and I've gone through like this massive phase in my life over the past year where trying to date and like realizing people's like self-awareness and like people just accepting their trauma and issues with life, and then you go into the bodybuilding world and it's just like 1,000 times heightened because
Yes, it
of
is.
everything that's involved with it. And then also like the fact that I think people look at bodybuilders and they forget where we came from. Like they think that we're the most cocky people, but like, I mean, take it like I know we all know who Goob is, right? Like he sits there and points out all these big people who edits their photos, and
Hmm.
it's honestly like it's sad, but it's so sad. Like I wanted to cry when I saw that Eureshna did it because I've seen her in person, and it just is like this is the most beautiful woman on the planet of the earth, and the fact that you feel so pressured to change your body online to make like what do you think anybody would have liked her photo less if she posted the normal one? Like
That's an interesting thought, but that's also the thought of it is what kind of gets you down that road. You see what I'm saying? It's like, oh, take the bodybuilding aspect first, for example, since we were talking about, supplements. Okay, I can be great, but if I'm looking at such and such and such and such and such and such, oh my God, I think I need to do this and do this and do this and do this in order for me to get here. And then realistically speaking, you might not even get there because there's so many other aspects of it. So the mental of that is like, I can't be me. I have to do something to enhance me or be a better me or think better of me in a sense.
the issue with that is comparison is the thief of joy.
Hey,
And it is, and that's something I learned bodybuilding. Like I used to be the person to excessively look at the people that are going to be competing in my shows, and I stopped. Like it just, I stopped following the shows. I realized that yes, like you see this person that may look better than you, but then you also forget like the posing. Like somebody can make their bigger waist look smaller if they pose better. If you're just focused on yourself in bodybuilding and mentally, you literally stop focusing on everybody else. You stop caring about how everybody else looks. You become a better version of yourself, and then you attract people like that. And I know it's hard to do. Like, do not get me wrong. I will say this: for having as many followers as I have and the platform I have, I never scroll. You can now schedule your posts. I don't even have to get on Instagram to post a photo or a reel. I schedule them. They post on their own. I turn off the likes. Sometimes I'm trying to figure out how to turn off my DMs. Like I just don't care about people's opinions. Like it's just yeah, it's great that people support it or need help, and I do want to help people be positive about themselves and find that mental freedom. And that's really what it is. Like body build because you want to push yourself. That's why I do it anymore. I really just I'm like, okay, I brought a great figure, but like I can do more. I can do more. I can do more for myself. My body's a completely different size. Like I'm 140 pounds. Like I've never been 140 pounds in my life. And like my girlfriend's like, how do you look like that? And I was like, honestly, I don't know, but I love it. This is weird.
right.
Like this is so weird.
This is me. I love it. Look.
Yeah, and I want that for everybody. Like I want everybody to look at themselves and be like, nobody else can be me. Like that's not
Mm.
like they can. Like you can look at everybody else all day long and be like, I want to look like that. But like why though? Do you, and you could probably be a better version of you, and everybody might look at you and be like, huh. Like,
But that's a superpower. I swear I was watching something on my way home or listening, not watching because I was driving home. And it was like as right, no, uh, police. I was driving. It was my phone was in the seat. All right, so what was said was that as humans we have our own unique superpowers, and it's how we morph through life, how we adapt through life, and how we become who we become. And that's the superpower. And what he attaches that same quote you just said, like what was it? Something being the thief of joy. Comparison is the thief of joy. So we sit around and we go through trauma, we try to compare lives to lives. Oh, well, you didn't go through what I went through. Well, no, we're all different. And the minute you're able to kind of come over that, you're able to tap into who you are as a not necessarily a superhuman human, but your own superpower.
you'll be able to figure it out. Like, I think people get stuck on the, like you said, right? Like, do what they're doing to get the results they got. And I think my biggest thing that I fight with like followers is like, what do you eat? And like, is it doesn't matter what I eat, because what I eat is way more than I used to eat, and my body had to grow to accept that food and put it where it needs to go.
Mm.
But also, I posted something today, and I literally said it out loud to myself. I'm like, I don't even know where I got this, but we are all given different tools. Just like you said, we all have different trauma, different things. We're all given different tools. Some people grew up with a mechanic dad and got inherited. Some people grow up in Brazil and have wonderful asses without even trying. And so that doesn't take away from you. And if you sit there and look at that and let it like hurt your mental, well, honey, you're just going to be that much better from, and also you could get more business from going from a flat butt to a big butt. They can't do that. Well, their comparisons aren't going to be any different. Like, they're going to be like,
Yeah,
oh,
that's
look
true.
at what happened to me. Nothing happened to you. You were born that way.
Right, that's true. That's crazy.
And like, if people
Well,
could just see it as an opportunity
mhm,
instead of a hindrance, it would probably bode a lot well for them.
yeah, I agree. Man, that was deep. That was deep. So, last couple questions, I'll get you out of here. How do we enhance this dialogue? Again, like I reach out to so many people, and you talk about the DMs, you talk about messages. Some people answer, some don't, some say I'll think about it, whatever the case is. But I'm pretty sure you have your own ideas, which you can elaborate on if you choose to. But how can we make this type of conversation important in the sport?
Honestly, have it with everybody. And like social media, yes, it's a big platform. I think finding a way to use the bad things about social media for our for our powers, right? Taking the reels and the sayings. I mean, I do this in my faith. Like, I take all the bad, dirty reels or the funny ones, and then you throw the caption on there, and it gives it a whole other story. And so make
Mm,
sure that the story you're putting out there aligns with what you're trying to create.
okay.
And once your following starts to build, people know who you are. But I think that it should be talked about everywhere. And I don't have massive ideas on it, like, right? So it's like using social media as best as we can to our abilities. Like, it's just, I hate social media. I'm not even gonna lie to you, I hate it. I hate that people think I'm an influencer. They're like, Aubri, go influence. I mean, it's just like, guys, I'm using it as a tool to help
Right.
people. Like, I don't want the DMs. I don't need the validation. I want to help. And so take it, use it. But I mean, honestly, I think the more we talk about it, and this goes a lot more for the men's side too, because I think women are very good about this, and we all know in today's society, men have a that be a man mentality, and they can't open up and
Hmm.
whatever. I think we need to be in a place to allow men to do that, and we need
Yes.
to create a platform for that, because the men's side of bodybuilding is so much larger, and the more comfortable that they get opening up about it, the more that movement will be huge when men start to be honest about the way that they feel through these processes and not making it look like it's this joyride. Most of these men are fat boys turned beautiful. And yeah, like, there's like, oh, I was fat as a child, I was bullied, and then they get beautiful and get all this attention, and then they like hide their trauma behind walls. Like, nah, honey, use that. Like, help
Yeah,
us help you.
I talk about it all the time with my clients because they think like, man, because I started in 2019, and like, man, you did this overnight. No, that this is definitely not overnight, and I still got that fat boy stuffed cookies in the fridge gene during off season all the time. I fight it all the time. Like my sweet tooth is ignorant as they come.
I think we need to stop making it look easy. That's an issue bodybuilders have, is that they
That's
don't
the perception though, because
but
it's
no,
not
but
easy for me.
they post, so you know. And I think that, and it's bad on the women's side too, right? We only post the pretty photos. We only
I
talk
got you.
about the good parts. We don't, a big thing that has literally, my social media was at 25K in January.
Right.
And now it is at 75, whatever it's at. Right? So when I started talking about my mental and like being open about therapy and all that, that's when people started to relate. Because it's real. Like, stop lying. Stop acting like it's so easy for you to eat 4 ounces of chicken and no carbs. Like, it's not.
Yeah, you just gave me a dope idea because
Good.
yeah, because I was doing this thing called like mental health tips as far as explaining it from a clinical view about what we go through. But I really should be explaining it from how I go through it. So yeah, you just
Everybody.
gave me a dope idea.
I think you find men that struggle with this that are willing to talk about it, because men are the worst, and they're like, I'm just pretty and it's this easy, man, just eat more. No, be like, yo, bro, it's really hard. Like, it's really, really hard. And there are days where I break down. And like, I have a guy friend in the bodybuilding world that literally tells me, he's like, I will cry sometimes. Like, it is hard. I do an hour and a half of cardio every day, but they want it so bad. Talk about the motivation, but also talk about the fact that motivation disappears, and that's where discipline sets in.
Facts.
So,
Well, look, Miss Aubrey. Oh, I could have talked to you all day because this is one of the realest conversations that I've had on this podcast out of, I want to say, going on 20 shows now.
well, good.
So,
That makes me feel
hey,
special.
you hit a lot of key points. I would love to talk outside of this as far as, again, continuing this dialogue for sure. I feel like you have a wealth of knowledge that can definitely contribute to this conversation. Antoine didn't undersell that. He hit that right on the button. He undersold the work, but so but oh my god, I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you and the
No
movement you're trying
problem.
to create here.
Absolutely. So we'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.
Bye.
All right.